Hey, this is News from Heaven. Angels can tell who is influencing their thoughts. I mean, don't we have a universal drive to know when we're being influenced? Nobody likes to have it pointed out, you're just doing that because, so-and-so wants you to, or because you heard that somewhere else. Everybody wants to think, look, I know what I'm doing, and I know when people are affecting me. Then we say advertising doesn't work on me, or does it? And we drill down into how much are we being influenced by societal expectations. All these things. Influence matters. And Swedenborg brings us along this whole complicated ball of spiritual influence to add to that. That it's not just how do your social media bubbles influence you. It's not just how does your demographic or where you grew up influence the way you think. Yeah, there's a spiritual side to it too. And the good news is you can break out of it by becoming an angel, which is something you can do a lot of the work of in this world right now. So let's take a look and see if we can't, have this sort of spiritual role model looking down at us here in the angelic ability to know who's influencing their thoughts. Because what it is to be an angel, in a lot of ways, is just to, right now, all of us are inside here, right? And we don't see this screen that you and I are seeing. We just see what's out ahead of us, and we don't realize the influence of the dark clouds on us. We don't realize that there is this influence from the Lord waiting to come down. We just see problems here. Maybe some person is a problem, or some situation is a problem, or some concept is a problem, and we just experience. What it is to be an angel, really, is just to be able to see this picture and say, where's the Lord? Where is hell? And what's really going on with my life? So that doesn't sound so bad. This is in Secrets of Heaven, Volume 2. This is the interchapter material. You can see a little bit here. There's this little line that's showing, look, this is something in addition to Swedenborg's biblical exegesis. And this is where he actually puts in some of the most interesting stuff. It's this little treatise on particular topics. This one happens to be the ability of spirits and angels to perceive things and auras in the other life. And we've done shows about auras. We've touched on this passage before, but let's work in there and see if we can get a little sense of what it's like to be an angel. Among the amazing things in the other life are perceptions. Among the amazing things in the other life are cathedrals made out of glass and water that doesn't get you wet, and the more vivid colors and trees that are thousands of feet. No, among the amazing things in the other life are perceptions. Of which there are two kinds. So even though all that stuff I just listed is stuff that I've read in near-death experiences, so it very well may be out there. And Swedenborg would have seen all that. But still, he's saying, what's amazing? These perceptions. These are amazing. Of which there are two kinds. One exists with angels. They perceive what is true and good, what comes from the Lord and what from themselves, and what the source and nature of their thoughts, words, and deeds is when these come from themselves. I could highlight the whole thing, but I won't. Was anyone expecting that to be the answer? So the angelic perception. What's it like? What can angels tell that's so amazing? Well, they can tell what's actually true. That sounds nice. And what's actually good. Like they have moral clarity. That's one way of putting it. What comes from the Lord and what from themselves. So right here, you've got this Swedenborg model where even if you've got an angel, what do we draw angels in yellow? I guess so. You've got an angel, right? But even they know that, let's say the Lord is up here and, themselves is here. They even know, when is something, does the colors mean anything? When is something, and something meaning thoughts and feelings. I'm talking about influence. When is influence coming? There we go, tie in. When is influence coming from the Lord, and when is influence coming from self in the stuff that occurs in their heads? The nature of their thoughts, words, and deeds is when, and the nature of the thoughts, words, and deeds when they come from themselves. Because this self, there's a little more going on there. But so they know when something, like I'm getting inspiration, like God is putting this idea into my head. And when this is coming in, We know something about its quality. Okay, all right, that's great. Man, was that worth it. The other kind, this is the second kind of perception, is one that is common to everyone. To angels at the peak of perfection and to spirits according to their quality, as soon as another person approaches, they know what that person is like. They don't try to, like, hey, I'm here to sell you a water purifier, and I'm not trying to rip you off, are you? So, those are the two things angels can do. The second one seems a lot more straightforward, and we'll be dwelling on the first one here. Let us turn to the first kind, the kinds angels have, their ability to tell what is true and good, what comes from the Lord, what comes from themselves, and what the source and nature of their thoughts, words, and deeds is when these come from themselves. Sounds like a repeat, but there is, I believe, a little variation in here. Oh, maybe it's exactly the same. Okay, shoot. Forget I ever said anything. Forget everything I've ever said. I was allowed to talk with the descendants of the earliest church about their ability to perceive. Earliest church, so these people are now angels. This is earliest church is the earliest state of human spirituality. Swedenborg would assert that these people lived somewhere on this globe at some point and really had this amazing spiritual life, and now are some of the highest, deepest angels out there. They said they did not and could not think anything on their own or will anything on their own. Oh, well, they can't be that great. Can't think anything on their own or will anything on their own. With each and every thought or impulse, they said, they can tell what comes from the Lord and what comes from somewhere else. So, what themselves, but really what Swedenborg is asserting that they asserted to him, is this sort of, there's inspiration from the Lord, and come on, when you've this is an awesome idea. This is a great feeling that I'm having. I'm so glad I went there instead of there. I don't know if that's inspiration from the Lord, but that's my best guess. Okay, you've got the Lord is coming in, bringing some of this infinity and this clarity and this call to rise above what hell is trying to give you. And then there's the my little self. But even there, these angels are saying the stuff in their little self is influenced. It's not just a vacuum of themness. There is an influence. You know what? A little foreshadowing. I don't think that. Well, actually, never mind. I take it back. That arrow can go up like that. There's an influence here coming into their sense of self. They perceive not only how much is from the Lord and how much is seemingly from themselves, but also, when it does seem to originate in themselves, where it comes from. But I know I keep stopping here, but one of my favorite things in Swedenborg is that you can break the seemingly ephemeral, cloudy, lacking in detail, in hard edges world of the mind, of thoughts and feelings. You've been there. It's just this whole running misery as you go through life. But you can break it out and say, look, what just seemed like, how do you ever subdivide your attitude towards something? This is what's from the Lord in there. This is what's from the... You can parse those things out and get to the root of them. And if you've ever been haunted or tormented by your own mind, the idea of being able to demystify it and say, look, here's where the influences are that are creating this experience for me. What could be better than that? What could be better than that? They perceive not only how much is from the Lord, that's my catch-up song. That is, they perceive which angels it comes from, what those angels are like, and what all their different thoughts are, and so what the various influences are, along with countless other factors. What we have here is this sentence, which really is calling out from the depths for some kind of breakdown here. So when something originates from themselves, we're used to talking on this channel about influence of hell and its spirits, which man, does it sound weird, but it's just like the negative chatter. I mean, that's the net effect. But here, even angels are saying, okay, there's influence on them, but when you're up that high, the other influence, this is why that arrow could go up. Because sure, it's angels. Maybe maybe these people down here that are influencing them are a little more natural minded, but it's not nearly as bad as the influences we get here. But still, each of these people bring something of theirs in, their influence. And look at how it breaks it down here. What all their different thoughts are. What those angels are like. So isn't it true that you go and read a news article and you don't know, is what they're saying true? But then there's certain indicators there. You can learn about the author and know, oh, okay, they have this political affiliation, or they, have these ties to industry or something. You can know that's affecting what they're putting out. So it is with these angels being able to tell, oh, I'm being influenced by these other people. There's influence. Just like those people who are writing those articles are influencing us, there's this spiritual influence going on. But the angels can tell, I know what kind of people these are that are trying to influence me. And I don't even think it's direct. I think it's just the aura of this person's life going out, and it could be very good influence. But the angels can tell, oh, this is exactly why this is like it is. It's clarity, man. That is what the whole thing is. The whole picture, the joy of being an angel is clarity. You get it. You get why life is like it is. You get why your own mind is like it is. Perceptions of this kind come in many varieties. Heavenly angels who love the Lord perceive goodness, and this enables them to perceive everything that is a matter of truth. Since they perceive truth from the standpoint of what is good, they do not allow any discussion of truth, let alone argument about it, but say yes or no. That yes, yes, let your yes be yes and your no, no, of biblical fame. So that's the heavenly mindset, is, look, we know what is. You don't drag us down into these philosophical debates, because you're going to obscure the true meaning, which certainly does happen. Spiritual angels, on the other hand, who also have perception, though not the kind heavenly angels have, do talk about truth and goodness. They still perceive things. Whoa, it's a little bit overzealous. But they perceive them in many different ways, because this kind of perception has countless variations. The variations have to do with perceiving whether and this is, I know we touched on this in an episode before. This is so cool. So we're down to the spiritual perception, whether the Lord wills a thing. Oh man, come on, this has got to be highlighted. Whether the Lord wills a thing, accepts a thing, or tolerates it, which are quite different from each other. Talk about clarity. Man, look at that. Some of them are lowercase and some of them are uppercase. Talk about clarity. You look out into the world and you say, like, wouldn't it be clarifying to know when something happens, is this God wanting this to happen? Or is God just allowing this to happen because in the end the result will be good? Or is the Lord just barely tolerating this because this is a last resort? How cool. I can't think of anything that would be nicer to have than that. When you look at how confused everything is, you look at what's going on and you just like, what's God's plan? Where are we going? What steps need to happen? Man, the Lord wills a thing, accepts it, or tolerates it, which are quite different from each other. Like, there would be a metaphysical distinction there. The way that providence lets things happen. To us, it just may seem like, oh yeah, that's kind of how does God feel, but there's probably really technical spiritual framework around the earthly forces that allow certain events to happen and don't allow others to happen. There's a lot of electronics in there, so to speak. And what would it be like to be able to perceive, what is okay, we'll let this happen for the greater good, and this is where we're trying to go. I mean, come on, that would be great. There are spirits. Oh yeah, just in case anybody's still watching the video, let me give you some real weirdness. There are spirits belonging to the region of the skin, particularly the squamous layer, who want to argue everything. So in the grand human being of heaven, they play the same role because of the kind of mind they have that our skin plays, which is a good, important role. You've got to have it. And what's the characteristic of the outermost skin-like mindset? They want to argue everything. They do not perceive what is good and true. And in fact, the more they argue, the less they perceive it. Because Swedenborg's not huge on the discipline of arguing. Like, are you actually finding the truth through trying to prove your point? They identify wisdom with sophistry, which they count on to make them seem wise. I told them that the role of angelic wisdom is to perceive whether a thing is good or true without sophistic reasoning. But they cannot grasp the possibility that this kind of perception exists. That you can get to the mind the point where you can see things, just like you can see the tree out the window. It's a perilous journey because you can't just say, well, because anybody could just say, well, I can tell that thing X is true that's not true. So this is why we have to have a world where we need to reason about things, because we don't have perception. We're not like the heavenly angels that have this perception. To us, you can be totally convinced and totally believe and get all kinds of good feelings around something that is false and evil. It happens all the time. And something that is true and good can be staring you in the face, but doesn't seem like it is. So we do have to think things through and try to figure things out. Although, you can augment that a bit by acknowledging, having some clarity on, okay, there is a perception out there. Just like in your own little world, like asking the Lord will you give me any perception of that, and see, this is the tightrope everyone has to walk. You have to make the executive decision inside yourself of what do I really believe is true and good, and then try to be open to perfecting that. They are the same people that use the academic and philosophical disciplines during bodily life to cast confusion over truth and goodness, use jargon, and as a result seem to themselves to be more knowledgeable than others. They had not started with any valid assumptions taken from the Word. Consequently, they do not have much common sense. So this is, and we could do a whole nother show on this, but not started with any valid assumptions taken from the Word. So you're talking about there's certain truths, like the existence of God, that if you don't start there, you'll never get there. Which again is its whole own episode. As long as spirits imagine that they lead themselves, and that they think for themselves and gain knowledge, intelligence, and wisdom for themselves, they cannot have perception. Instead, they consider perception to be stuff and nonsense. Ooh, language alert. Stuff and nonsense. Now that is telling, because what did we say way back over here? What is perception? It's clarity on the influence that is happening in your mind. That we are influenced by heaven, we're influenced by hell. That's what this whole blue box was supposed to be, right? Is angels understand the influence of the dark clouds and the influence of the Lord, and where those two differ and where they meet. But if you're sitting here saying, no, nobody's influencing me, I lead myself, and that they think for themselves, gain knowledge, intelligence, and wisdom for themselves, you can't have perception. Why? Because perception is acknowledgement of we're influenced. Right? And if part of your MO is I'm not influenced, I'm leading myself, well, that's the exact opposite of the truth. So you can never have this perception of the truth. It's a wild world, human consciousness, and as I was just saying earlier, we're trying to get in there and see what's true and good. At the same time, you got a heads up to just take everything that's going through your mind pretty lightly, because you don't know what the influence is. But I think you can make progress. I think that he's talking about valid assumptions taken from the Word. So it's your spiritual truths that guide you, right? That allow you, they're really the thing you can kind of hold a mirror up to the stuff in your heart and mind and say, well, this is what I really think seems to be what's really true and what's really good. How does this stuff in here compare? That is spiritual growth, and that is what allows God to start to put some little bits of perception in there, so that we, like the angels, can start to learn who's influencing our thoughts. Is it selfishness? Is it materialism? Is it limited, false view of life? Or is it love of the whole human race? Is it the Lord? Is it, heaven? Is it angels themselves coming in there to say, yeah, you're doing a good job. You're on the right path. Or, hey, you really into that? You could try this just a few degrees off, and that might work. So that's the news from heaven. Hope you liked it. Hope that was something that you're going to take with you. Let us know in the comments. Go to otle.causevox.com. Please support our programming. We're a not-for-profit. We got to have that in order to keep running. And I hope that you, throughout this week, feel some kind of good perception. Like, hey, I'm feeling something that's clear. I'm thinking clearly about this, and I can tell what's right and wrong, even if it's just for a moment, and that continues to pop up for us more and more as we go forward. You guys rock for letting me go through this stuff and doing it with me, and couldn't ask for a better time. Thanks.